deliver in qualifying. Here on Friday at Pocono, fast in practice and delivered in qualifying. He starts 5th, trying to resurge the petty effort. He has just one top 10 so far this season. Next to him, Johnny Benson, making his comeback after that hard crash in the Pepsi 400 in Daytona on the 4th of July weekend. This is just the 15th start for Benson. He broke ribs at Richmond, came back at Pocono. He broke ribs at Daytona, comes back at Pocono. Today, he starts 6th, looking for his first career win. Alan?
Bill, you know, so many of the headlines here in Pennsylvania this week have been focused on Somerset, a couple hundred miles away from here, where those 9 miners were trapped underground for 3, 4, 5 days. What was it, about 3 days they were trapped down in there? Little 4-foot by 18-foot space.
Longer than I want to think about, I'll tell you that. You wondered, could they get those guys out? But thank God they did.
Yeah, diligent rescue effort, and they all came out last night. And I got a chuckle. I didn't see the news this morning, but one of our people were telling me that one of the guys came out and said, thank goodness we're out in time to see the race. I mean, we were so glad that they got out okay, and they were on the thoughts of a lot of people around here in Pennsylvania. In fact, Jimmy Spencer, a Pennsylvania native, has got a sign in his Target car that says, glad you're home, guys. So a great ending to that story, and we hope they're all doing very well.
Joy, you know Jimmy Spencer, that 41 car, wants to run better at this racetrack and any track on the circuit because he grew up about 70, 80 miles from here, but he seems to have, his luck seems to be so bad at Pocono.
He has none here. But he'll try it again. We are set to go. The rain is held off. The crowd is on its feet. 200 laps, 500 miles here at Pocono. Let's get him started.
Green.
Here they go. 3, 4 wide, just like you said, Walt.
Yep, now so you're going to get through. You want to be down on the bottom, I think, going through one of the first lap. You certainly don't want to make it 3 wide, but everybody looks like they're behave themselves so far anyway, but you still got to get through 2 and 3 on the first lap.
Ricky Rudd gets the jump. He's the early leader. Oh, trouble! Steve Park is off into the infield. Another car valve over on his lid. It's Parkindale Jr. Terrible crash.
Man, Steve Park's car just turned dead left when he came off turn 2. Junior is running to see his teammate and see if he's okay.
And getting off into that wet grass wasn't going to do anything to slow those cars down. Caution is out. Ricky Rudd will lead the field back to the yellow. You can see Park moving inside the car, looking through the back glass. He's trying to get himself unwrapped around the roll bars to get out.
Yeah, he's definitely moving in there. That's a great sign.
The car hit that inside guardrail, which is a guardrail instead of a wall. Yeah, Rusty Wallace got a piece of it.
And we saw Rusty make it 3 wide going in turn 1, but as he entered turn 1, it looks like it slowed down and everything was under control.
Boy, you see that guardrail? They have flattened that guardrail inside that straightaway.
And once again, they talk about safer walls, and NASCAR and some folks at the University of Nebraska are working on making a softer wall, a safer wall. And what they're talking about is a wall like that that gives on impact rather than just sits there and makes the car and driver absorb all the energy.
Safety workers still there around the number 1 car. Of course, Steve has suffered 2 serious injuries back in March of '98 when he had that terrible crash at Atlanta that broke his leg and left him out for months, and then the crash at Darlington last Labor Day weekend in the Busch Series car, that strange crash when the steering wheel, it's suspected, came off in Steve's hands.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. still there.
And it's real easy, especially on the first lap coming out of 1. You know, you got cars 2 and 3 abreast, and if you slide up the racetrack, we talked about earlier,
There's
Benny,
Steve coming out of there.
There he is.
There we go.
Good sign.
That's what we wanted to see.
Anyways, what happens is you slide up the racetrack and you can hit somebody in their left rear as you slide up the racetrack with your right front. And that's almost what it looked like. That one car just turned dead sideways.
Well, what a great shot that is. Teammates walking away from a crash like that, arm in arm.
Wally, you said just seconds before that they got through turn 1, but they had to get through turns 2 and 3. Didn't think they'd have problems on the straightaway, though.
Well, but like I said, you come out of turn 1,
Yeah.
and if you slide up the racetrack, especially as green as it is, you never know what's going to happen.
All right, now that we know the drivers are okay, let's see if we can figure out what happened to cause this mess.
We see the Jimmy Johnson car, and there's Rusty Wallace. You see Park trying to squeeze up the outside.
I see he was trying to go on the outside of Rusty. Rusty moves up. They make contact. And Junior gets under the one car and just kind of bulldozed him into the wall and over.
Yeah, that's what actually turned him even more sideways. But I'll tell you what, that guardrail did the job.
Oh, it did. It's a great
Took
job.
a lot of, that absorbed a lot of impact right there.
What's a yellow car? Back there, just turn left.
And when you hit wet grass, it feels like you pick up 200 mile an hour.
But you can see how that barrier gave way when
Absolutely.
that car got into it.
That barrier absorbed a lot of energy, and I'll tell you what, that nice to see happen, because if that were a concrete wall, he would have taken a much harder hit.
One more shot. Rusty's right in the middle of the racetrack. Steve Park's going on the outside, but Rusty decides to come up to the outside line, not realizing that Steve was there. They made contact, and the ride is on.
Look at that barrier give. Thank goodness.
But again, that's one reason that Steve was able to walk away arm in arm with Dale Earnhardt Jr. because of that wall that did give.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
And you know, the spotters on the roof here at Pocono are a long way away from where Rusty Wallace and Steve Park were racing over there. And it could be hard for that spotter to call Rusty clear. You know, maybe he did call Rusty clear. It's hard to, you know, but it's a difficult angle and a long way away from here at the start-finish line.
Yeah, that's an extremely tough call. You're right, Alan. This place, you have to look a mile away to see what's going on. So a lot of the driver has to really has to pay attention out there.
Under caution early, a savage crash involving Steve Park. Thankfully, both drivers, he and Dale Earnhardt Jr., are okay. Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania, the site of the Pennsylvania 500, presented by Pep Boys, under caution after a lap 1 crash between Steve Park and Dale Earnhardt Jr. Rusty Wallace also involved.
Let's take a look here at what happened. And it appears that you watch right here, Steve Park is trying to squeeze up the outside of Rusty. And Rusty just really moves up the racetrack thinking he's clear on Steve Park. And he drives right up into Steve Park, which turns him in the wall. Steve tries to turn left to avoid it and gets hooked by Dale Jr., which turns him even more sideways. And they both get hooked up and they hit this guardrail. And I mean, it's an amazing crash, but I'll tell you what, all the safety equipment did their job today.
And again, thank goodness for that soft wall on the inside, that steel barrier that gave so much when the one car got into it. And again, that's why the NASCAR and those folks are working on these walls. That's why the folks at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway installed those barriers that give like that on impact.
And that's a scary crash to be watching from Earnhardt. It happens so fast when you're in a crash like that, and Earnhardt's sitting there looking at it, and that's why he ran over to the car to see how his teammate and Buddy was doing.
And knows he's basically pushing Park into that wall.
Right. And here you see Steve climbing out. And everybody's happy because of that.
What a great shot.
Yeah. Cleaning up the accident scene over between turns 1 and 2. Got a lot of work to do to repair that guardrail. The Pennsylvania 500 presented by Pep Boys is about to be red flagged. The hard crash between turns 1 and 2 with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Steve Park and Rusty Wallace involved has damaged that inside guardrail and is going to need some repair work before the race can safely resume. Here's another look at it. This one at full speed.
Yeah, this is just amazing how violent this crash looks. There again, there's a credit to the cars on how much protection there is around these cars right now.
Steve Park was kind of tucked inside that safety cocoon, BP.
Alan, I'm at the Team Roush Team Caliper 360 car, and let's look at what the driver sits in. Here the driver is in the seat. Then the seat, they've got these new seats that really hold the driver secure inside. And look at the roll cage that surrounds them. The bar here, so in case the car flips over on the roof or someone drives into it, they won't come down on the driver. The roll cage on the left side, 4 bars protecting the driver. This also, Dale Earnhardt at Talladega a few years ago, a car hit the windshield. That's when NASCAR insisted they put this Earnhardt bar in the windshield to keep debris from going inside on the driver. And and you see the window net? It comes down. That's the way that they can get to the driver more easily. The window net was an invention of Richard Petty. Back in about 1970, he flipped at Talladega, and he was just flipping through the air like Steve Park was doing. His arm flew out the window. The next race that he goes to, Richard Petty has the window net. NASCAR thought it was such a good idea. Now all the cars have a window net. Matt?
Well, Benny, down here in the 2 garage, I've caught up with Rusty Walsh, who's surveying the damage to the Blue Deuce. First off, Rusty, any idea what happened?
Not really. On the start of the race, the 48 just didn't get a good start. I passed him going into 1. Everything was fine. Went through 1, went through 2, and I come down the back straightaway, and all of a sudden, I just get nailed in the right rear quarter panel, and I don't know what happened, to tell you the truth. And into the wall, and that was it.
And this is a tough place for spotters going down into 1. They can't quite get a good feel, and also off down by the tunnel turn, too.
Yeah, you can't really rely on a spotter. I mean, spotters are... You're supposed to drive the race car yourself. I can't put a responsibility onto a spotter. Evidently, they're telling me Steve Park had a run on me. And as I was coming down the back straightaway and fading up towards the wall, he had a good run on me, got his nose in on the right side, and just wedged himself in there, and that was it. But not much you can do about it.
Well, they certainly are disappointed. They're certainly trying to fix this race car to get back out for points, Alan.
We are under the red flag here at Pocono. You see the field has been parked on pit road. Ricky Rudd, the leader. The first car in line there, but the race will be stopped so that repairs can be effected to that inside guardrail between turns 1 and 2 where Steve Park and Dale Earnhardt Jr. crashed. Fortunately, the guardrail gave. No question that helped the severity of the crash, but now it's going to need to be repaired before racing can safely be resumed once again. Bill?
Alan, Benny talked about all the safety innovations currently in these NASCAR Winston Cup machines, but safety innovation continues day in and day out. Earlier this year, NASCAR conducted a series of tests at the new speedway in Kansas City, Kansas. What they're looking at is a larger greenhouse. That's this portion of the car, the glass and the roof. They're looking at making it bigger. Now, a lot of people believe that's to try and help the aerodynamic push problem currently involved in the Winston Cup Series. But this morning, Series Director John Darby told me those tests are being conducted so they can have a bigger greenhouse area, so they can put bigger, safer seats and bigger, safer roll cages in these cars to protect the drivers. Obviously, that will affect the aerodynamics of a race car and may have some influence on the aerodynamic push problem we hear about week in and week out, especially here at Pocono, next week at Indianapolis. But the bigger greenhouse truly is a design to try and make these drivers more safe as racing continues. Just another NASCAR innovation working with race teams in the Winston Cup garage.
Yeah, I think you're right, Bill, and I think also one of the reasons BP, maybe they're making that greenhouse bigger, is that it gives more crush to a race car, and that when there's more around you and it has more crush, it absorbs more energy, and I think that's maybe what they're looking at as well.
And I think a lot of guys need that larger greenhouse. I'm talking about Michael Waltrip, who's what, 6'5" or something. Sure, maybe it's not a big deal to Jerry Nadeau at 5'7", 5'8", but you take a guy 7-8 inches taller inside that car, his head almost into the roof, so he needs that roof to be 2 or 3 inches higher. I think it's a great thing to do if they can just do it. All right, Marty, what's Junior having to say? Relief, I guess.
I would say he is relieved just from the infield care center. First of all, what did you see from your windshield, Junior?